Hey guys! Welcome back to my channel, Algebra 1 Tutorials with Alina. If you like my videos, please like and subscribe. Today we are learning about how to solve equations, especially with combining like terms and using the distributive property. Let's get started. So first off, we have the order of solving an equation. And so I'm going to use this example of this equation right here, which says 2 times 3x plus 4 is equal to x plus 3. And so we're going to go through the order of solving this equation over here. So for most equations, we have the basic order of solving, which is used through the acronym of PEMDAS. And each letter in this acronym stands for a different thing, and you go from order from the top to the bottom. And so the first thing you would do using PEMDAS is solving everything inside of the parentheses. The next step is to calculate all of the exponents. The next two steps are to multiply and divide. These two steps can be used pretty interchangeably. So if, like in the equation from left to right, if multiplying comes first, then you multiply first. But if dividing comes first, then you divide first. The next two steps are addition and subtraction. And it's the same thing with the multiplying and dividing. You can do addition first or you can do subtraction first. It doesn't really matter. If the addition comes first in the equation, then you should probably do addition first. But if subtraction comes first in the equation, then you should do the subtraction first. So now that we have PEMDAS figured out, let's see if we can try and solve this equation right here. So this PEMDAS over here is just the basic sort of sequence of what order you should go in to solve the equations. But what about combining like terms and using the distributive property? So in equations like these, you have to use both combining like terms and the distributive property. So solving this equation with a little bit more specific steps is going to go a little like this. First, what you would have to do is use the distributive property. And we're going to talk about what the distributive property is below. Second, what you would have to do is combine all like terms. Third, you should isolate the variable onto one side of the equation. And the last step that you're going to do, number 4, is to just solve. Now, of course, you're not always going to need to have to use distributive property. So just keep that in mind. You only use the distributive property if it is needed. Now, as you can see, the distributive property in combining like terms doesn't really pop up in PEMDAS. That's because the distributive property is actually part of multiplying and dividing right here. So when you use the distributive property, you're essentially multiplying and dividing. And the combining like terms is part of addition and subtraction right here. Let's move on and try to understand what combining like terms really is. So combining like terms is when you take terms of the same group and combine them. And so combining them doesn't necessarily always mean adding. Combining them means that you can subtract the like terms from each other, or you can add the like terms with each other based on what their sign says. And so let's say we have this equation down here. Now if you look over here, we have two different term groups. They are the variable terms, which would be 6y, 3y, and 3y. And then we also have the constant terms, which would be 8, 26, and -6. And so to combine the like terms, we're going to combine all of the variable terms on the first side and the second side, and then we're going to combine all the constant terms on the first side and the second side. And so we're going to start combining these terms. So over here we have two variable terms. On this side of the equation, we have the 6y and we have the 3y. Since both of these are positive, we're just going to add them together to combine the y variable terms. So 6y plus 3y is equal to 9y. Over here on the same side, we only have one constant term. And so we have nothing to add this constant term with on this same side. So we're just going to leave it as it is, and we're going to write plus 8. And so this first side over here is equal to 9y plus 8 when you combine all of the like terms on that side. On this next side over here, we have, let's start with the variable term, we only have 1. So since there's nothing to combine it with on this side, we're going to just leave it as it is. We're going to write 3y. Over here we have 2 constant terms, and we want to combine these constant terms together to get a simpler term, like only one term. And so we have 26 and we have negative 6. So we're going to add 26 plus negative 6, which is the same thing as 26 minus 6, is equal to 20. And so we're going to write plus 20. And so this is our equation when we combine all of the like terms. Now up there, when we had our list of how to solve things, after combining like terms came to isolate the variable onto one side. And so to isolate the variable onto one side, you're going to use what we like to call using inverse operations. And so this is when you want to move something from one side of the equation to the other side to combine the terms together. So in our equation right here, we have the variable on two sides, on the left side and on the right side. On the left side, we have 9y, and on the right side, we have 3y. I want to move this 3y to the left side where the 9y is. And so one very important thing to remember before we start using these inverse operations is that whatever happens to one side of the equation, it has to happen to the other side of the equation too. And so to get this 3y over to the left side by the 9y, we're going to subtract 3y from this side, and then subtract 3y from this side, right here. And so now we're going to subtract these 3y's from both sides of the equation. Let's start on the left side. 9y minus 3y is equal to 6y. And it leaves us with also the positive 8 over there. This side is 6y plus 8. And the next side is going to be equal to 3y minus 3y is equal to 0. It sort of just cancels itself out. And so that leaves us with just a 20. Now over here we have the 8 and we have the 20. So we want to take the 8 and move it over to where the 20 is. So again, we're going to use inverse operations, and this time we're going to subtract 8 from this side. And since we subtracted 8 from one side, we subtract 8 from the other side. And so we have over here, we're subtracting the 8, so 6y, and then 8 minus 8 is 0, and it cancels each other's out, so it just leaves us with 6y. And on the other side, it's 20 minus 8, and 20 minus 8 is 12, and so that leaves us with the 12 over here. Now that we've combined all like terms, we have this really simple looking equation right here, which is 6y is equal to 12. And so we want to get the y alone to be able to have said that we solved it. And so to get this y alone, we're again going to use inverse operations. And so since this is 6 times y, and we just wanted to get the y alone, we're going to divide this side by 6. And we're also going to divide, since we divided the left side by 6, we're also going to divide the right side by 6. And so 6y divided by 6, the 6's cancel out and it leaves us with just y, which is going to be equal to 12 divided by 6, which is 2. And so we get the final answer that y is equal to 2. And we solved it with combining like terms. Let's move on and see what the distributive property is about. So the distributive property is when you multiply a group of numbers by the same term to add them separately. So again, let's say I have this equation right over here, and we're going to use the distributive property on this equation. So to use the distributive property, what you're going to want to do is you take this, you can see how there is a 5 right here, and it's right next to this parentheses with a group of terms in it, and in this case it is x minus 2. And so you're going to want to distribute this 5 to both the 6 and to the negative 2. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the 5 and you're going to multiply it by the x, and then you're going to take the 5 and multiply it by the negative 2. And you're going to write those out separately. And so we're going to do the same thing with the other side with the 6 and the x plus 3. We're going to take the 6 and we're going to multiply it by the x, and then we're going to take the 6 and multiply it by the 3. And so when we multiply 5 times x on the left right over here, we get 5x. And then when we multiply the 5 with the negative 2 over here, we get negative 10. So 5x minus 10. And that's how you're going to distribute 1. So we distributed the left side of the equation. Now let's move on to the right side. So we're going to multiply 6 by x, which is going to give us 6x. And then we're going to multiply 6 by 3 right over here. So 6 times 3 is 18. So we're going to write plus 18. So we successfully distributed both sides of this equation. And now we can go on and combine like terms and use inverse operations to actually solve this equation. And so remember, the first thing we want to do here is to isolate the variable on one side. And so first what we're going to do is we're going to get the variable, we're going to subtract, we're going to use inverse operations, and we're going to move this 5x over here over to the right side where the 6x is. And so we're going to subtract 5x from this side of the equation, and since we have to do whatever we do on the left side also to the right side, we're going to subtract 5x over here too. And so 5x minus 5x cancels each other's out and just leaves us with a negative 10. And then over here, 6x minus 5x leaves us with x, and then the plus 18 over here. Now we want to get this, since the x is on the right side, we sort of just want to leave it alone, and we're going to take the positive 18 and we're going to want to move it over to the left side to see what x is equal to so we can solve this. And so again, we're going to use inverse operations, and we're going to need to subtract 18 from this side of the equation and subtract 18 as well from the other side of the equation. And so negative 10 minus 18 is equal to negative 28, which is equal to x plus 18 minus 18 is just going to leave us with x. And so we can rewrite this part and just flip it around, and we can write x is equal to negative 28. And that is how you solve an equation using the distributive property. So guys, this is it for today. The practice problems for this topic, solving equations, is going to be in my next video. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and share, and make sure to follow my Facebook and Instagram accounts that I put in the description below. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye!